sacrifices to the gods and mass retreats without clothes. What secrets the holiday of Ivan Kupalo hides? Greetings! Today we will talk about what was one of the most important holidays in Russia. We will talk about Ivan Kupalo. Is it true that instead of effigies and birches in the reservoirs could drown a living person? What symbolized mass lovemaking and without clothes? And why on this day most girls sought to get pregnant? Be sure to watch the video to the very end so as not to miss all the important points. History of the holiday. It goes without saying that many of you have heard about Ivan Kupalo. This holiday originated in ancient times. It was then in Russia that our ancestors observed many traditions and customs. Ivan Kupalo in that period became the most significant, and, as is already known, not for nothing. The holiday of Ivan Kupalo was originally held on the night of June 23rd to 24th on the old style, but after the transition to the Gregorian calendar, it was moved. Henceforth, the Slavs celebrated this day from July 6 to 7. The listed dates are chosen for a reason, because in these days, the day is considered long and the night is short. Did you know why the holiday is named this way and not otherwise? It turns out that according to one of the popular versions of the word Kupalo, its roots go back to the Indo-European part, kup. It has nothing to do with bathing and derivatives of this word. Kup literally means to boil or boil over. Hence the widespread practice of making fires. But in addition to the element of fire, the inhabitants of ancient Russia also paid attention to the water element. In past times, the climate was formed quite differently. The weather was mostly warm and clear. Plus, the Slavs considered water and fire fundamental for many years. On the day of Ivan Kupalo, it was believed that inanimate objects acquire magical abilities, and the fertility of all living things increases many times. That's why the integral attributes of such a celebration were wreaths of plants, which were put on the head of young girls. And of course without a fire, which was built in the meadows and jumped over it. Most likely you know it firsthand. A special role in the day of Ivan Kupalo was given to effigies, which were burned on the fire, as well as trees, which were drowned in bodies of water. Hence the reason for cutting down birch trees by strong young men. This tree was considered the most suitable. These objects acted as sacrifices to Slavic deities. In ancient Russia, held the opinion that this is a gift to the gods from above. And after its acceptance, fertility will necessarily increase, including the birth of children. It is important to note that as sacrifices were not only familiar objects. You will be surprised, but live people were also sacrificed to the gods. And not adults, but young girls and boys were chosen for this purpose. They symbolized a new beginning. And the Slavs were sacrificed to special creatures, which according to the belief lived at the very bottom of the reservoirs, dancing, entertainment, and mass retreats. And now, let's talk about the most important and interesting. So how did the people entertain themselves on the day of Ivan Kupalo? On this account, a large amount of information has been preserved, and the direct process of entertainment is shown on many illustrations. Well, let's talk about it in more detail. For the holiday, as it is supposed to be, were prepared for several days. Young girls prepared wreaths of herbs, which they later put on their heads. As for the outfits, it was light clothing. As you already know, it was quite warm in Russia. Young men cut down trees and prepared branches for making fires. By the way, on this day, they tried to burn unnecessary and old things, because the Slavs were preparing for a new period. And as soon as everything was ready, dances and entertainment began. Young people jumped over the fire, led a round dance around it, and of course bathed in the reservoirs. Since then, there is a belief that in the process of washing, a person is cleansed of all the old and unnecessary accumulated over a long period. For non-fulfillment of these or those rites could even apply physical influence. Especially in this regard, young girls were hit. They were punished with nettles, which could be easily found in the open countryside, as well as with cold water. It was poured on the naughty inhabitants of ancient Russia. But the most striking thing happened ahead. At the end of the festive day, the Slavs began to seclude themselves with each other. They even tried to take off all their outer clothing. Young girls and boys certainly did not feel any shyness in this respect. There is even a reasonable explanation for this. Our ancestors believed that the naked body can scare away all the evil spirits and evil spirits. It is also amazing that on the day of Ivan Kupalo, adultery was not considered a sin. That's why people secluded in groups and did not worry about it. And yes, as you may have noticed, such cases took place right in nature. No seclusion in huts, houses and rooms was out of the question. The warm climate allowed it. The only thing worth mentioning is the situation of the girls in two categories. The first of them, young people with critical days, and the second, female representatives of the female sex who have recently given birth. Such residents of ancient Russia, in a categorical form, forbidden to engage in pleasures on the side. It is important to note that couples often made love right in vegetable gardens and other similar places. Such a specific way was based on the fact that after seclusion will necessarily increase the yield. At least the Slavs thought so. But young men on the day of Ivan Kupalo tried to make the maximum impression on their lovers. Therefore, young men often appeared in peculiar costumes and outfits. As you know, one of the symbols of Russia and modern Russia is a bear. In the costume of this beast, young men went out to the holiday, a special meaning for our ancestors. Naturally, the holiday of Ivan Kupalo occupied a special place in the life of the Slavic people. Take, for example, the practice of kindling fires. The inhabitants of ancient Russia jumped over the flames, not just for entertainment purposes. The person who managed to jump as high as possible over the fire was considered happy. But the girls and women who on that day for certain reasons did not go to the fire were considered witches. Therefore, they were calculated among the people in such a simple way. With special attention, Slavs treated vegetation. It was believed that on this holiday, herbs have all possible healing properties and can get rid of many diseases, spoils, and ailments. Many of you know that it is on the night of Ivan Kupalo that ferns begin to bloom. According to legend, the person who finds a blooming fern in the forest will acquire incredible abilities. For example, such a lucky person can take on any appearance, become invisible, and recognize the language of wild animals and birds. While bathing in rivers and lakes, Slavs believed that they could get rid of all sorts of diseases and gain good health. The only thing was to plunge into the water before sunset. A key role in the day of Ivan Kupalo Slavs gave the issues of weddings and childbearing. According to beliefs, newlyweds who were married on this holiday subsequently became a strong family. This was also indicated by the successful jumping of young men and women over the fire. Young people held hands, and if at the moment of jumping did not let them go, the marriage union guaranteed happiness, longevity, and prosperity. Regarding the birth of children, it should be noted only that if a girl became pregnant on the holiday, the child was considered a gift from Ivan Kupalo himself. It is for this reason that many people tried to have a child on this day. Conclusion. Thus, the holiday of Ivan Kupalo is a great day that has come down to us from ancient Russia. He was considered one of the most important in the life of the Slavs. On this day, people entertained themselves, were treated for many diseases, got married, and started families.